we're going to get this started. The first thing you're going to need to do, if you want to eat your ravioli now, is bring the pot of water to a boil. And I've got a pot over here. And let me just show you how much salt that we're going to put in this pot of water. So I've got this one. I've just turned it on. This is about 1.5 gallons of water. And I'm going to put about 1/4 cup of salt in there. You want it to taste like you took a big mouthful of ocean water, right? So I'm going to get a little bit more, right? And that can sit and boil. Throw a lid on it. Put it on like a low heat. And we're going to set that aside, right? The other thing I'm going to do is you could start with fresh spinach or frozen spinach. I am not opposed to frozen vegetables. This is about 1 pound of spinach. I'm going to throw it right in the microwave. Another thing I'm not afraid of are microwaves. 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, somewhere where it's just going to all wilt down. But while that's wilting, we're going to start with getting our aromatics together for the filling. Let me grab a saute. And we will not even dirty up a pot and pan for this. We'll just go right into the saute pan. I've really started to love to microplane garlic because I don't have to dirty up my board. So like you chop garlic on your board and then you're like cutting up apples and you're like, wow, I've never tasted a garlic apple before. With this, if you can just see, like take a look at that. Can you see that?
You know what? Hang on. I'm going to switch. I'm going to spotlight that for a moment. Okay, look at that, everyone.
Right. So orange zest, lemon zest, ginger, garlic, whatever. Tap it. Right. So it doesn't cut you very bad unless you get like knuckles. So you can run your finger down it. Right. But these are great. They do get dull after a while. I keep mine in its little plastic sleeve. So when you buy it, put it right back in the plastic sleeve. I throw it in the back of my knife drawer and it's always there. So garlic's in there, right? We're going to take and grind up a little bit of spices. So I've got some fennel seed. So fennel seed is what makes Italian sausage, which isn't called Italian sausage in Italy. It's called fennel sausage. That's what makes it taste like itself, right? And this is just a little crushed red pepper and then a little black pepper. And then we're going to grind this up in our mortar and pestling spices and stuff. And if you throw a little salt in there, it actually blooms it out a little better, right? It's a better way to grind. You don't develop the heat that you would in like a little coffee mill or something, but that's it. I mean, you can just see how quickly that was to grind that up. So by putting our spices in there first and throwing a little bit of butter into that, we're going to throw this on the stove. I'm going to a little more pat of butter. So I'm going to throw this on a low simmer. All right. So while that's cooking, what we're going to do is, so there's not a lot of like distributed fat inside of this filling. And, you know, fat kind of gives you mouthfeel. Fat kind of transfers flavors. So we're actually going to put about, this is 3/4 of a cup of cream. We're going to put about 1/2 cup of the cream into these aromatics once they are like sauteed down. And then we're going to reduce that down to kind of like bring some more fatness to it, right? And then once the spinach is done, then we're going to fold it all together after and cool it down. So this is, look at how yellow that butter is. This is actually one of my favorite butters. Kerrygold butter. As you can see this sauteing down, we just want to like let that fry for just a minute. Pour 1/2 cup of our cream in there. And we're going to reserve about 1/4 cup of that. And that's just going to come up to a boil. All right. Okay, so back to the cutting board. All right, here we go. This was about 5 minutes in the microwave with our spinach. Right? See how our big bowl of spinach wilted all the way down. So what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to throw this onto a cookie tray. And I'm going to let this cool down, because we have to squeeze all the water out that we can possibly squeeze out. So we're going to throw this on our walk-in cooler, and that's going to cool down. Let's head back over to the stove. See how this is reduced down and gotten nice and thick? That's all we're looking for there. So we're going to turn that off. I'm going to turn my pot of water down to a simmer. and that you can really smell the spices. I'm going to pour my cream in there. We're going to let this cool down. And while our spinach is cooling down, we're actually going to start working on our ravioli dough. Pot sticker or gyoza wrapper or dumpling wrappers. You can get them at pretty much any Asian market. Normally they're in the freezer section. You can make your own pasta if you would like. So this one doesn't have any egg, and you can see how lightly colored it is, right? They also make a Shanghai one that has a little bit of egg in it. But the curse of these things is the amount of starch that they put. So if you look, see my hands, right? We've got to get a lot of that starch off, right? See it coming right off. We're just going to take a pastry brush, both sides. Okay, so here's my spinach. Like the frozen spinach is even more watery just because the cell structure breaks down in the freezing process. So I'm going to start squeezing this, and you can just see the amount of water that just comes right out of it, right? So a frozen spinach is even worse than this. So you got to really squeeze it really, really good, right? And I'll just literally take balls full of it, work it between my hands, rotate, squeeze, rotate, squeeze. I actually did this recipe 3 different times, 2 times with frozen spinach and once with fresh. And I'll be honest with you, as long as I squeezed it good, I could not tell the difference between the 2 products. So I'm going to chop this up, right? And I'm cutting it probably about a pinky width wide, right? And then we're just going to go back through the other direction. I'm going to set these. So if you've got your wonton skins out or pasta out, little damp cloth, keep them covered. Don't let them dry out. I'm going to set these aside for just a second. So if you notice in the instructions, it tells you to chop your grated cheddar. And some people think I'm weird, but that's not why I'm weird. So we're going to put about 1.5 cups of cheddar in there, which is about 8 ounces of cheese, right? You can buy grated, you can buy a block. So I'm going to chop this up in with the spinach. And the reason is when you got this filling, if like a strand of cheese pokes out past the seal point, your ravioli won't seal nice, right? So we're just going to chop this up together a little bit, right? All right, so then I'm going to transfer this to our bowl. Get rid of the water. So here we go, not seasoned yet, right? So all your seasoning, which was like a teaspoon of kosher salt, right? So you got salt in the cheese, and then you've got a teaspoon of kosher salt, which went inside of the saute pan with all of our stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So this should be all your seasoning. You could put your seasoning in later, but we're going to throw it right in there. You want to get this nice and clean. So then, mix this really well. And you really got to force those little almost balls of spinach back apart so that you can get the seasoning into it. And then you have to taste it. If you don't taste it, you may make ravioli that are bland. And we're not going to make bland ravioli because it's tasty. So we're going to take these guys, and you got to watch out for the stragglers, right? And we're going to make our filling. They don't have to be perfect balls because we're going to set them right onto the ravioli bottoms in a second. But by pre-doing this, we're going to be a little faster when it comes to making our ravioli because you have to pay attention to not let the pasta dry out. And whether you're making fresh pasta or whether you're using any type of like wonton wrapper or dumpling wrapper, they want to dry out fast. They don't have a lot of moisture in them. And what moisture they do have, you need it to be there or it'll get brittle. Okay, so we're going to make a little bit of egg wash. And I'm just going to use the whites because that's the stickiest part. All right, so now then, no more lumpiness. Oh, a little bit of lumpiness. I lied. All right, cool. What we will do, we'll lay six of our little skins out. All right. And then just a light brushing of egg whites. So a lot of times you'll see the directions. They'll say, wet your finger, go around the edge, right? And you can, or you can just brush the whole thing. It's not going to hurt anything. And then you have 100% coverage, right? So we're going to take, and these are nice filled raviolis, and it makes them a little difficult to stuff, but they still work nice. So then you take, and this is almost like contact cement, right? Especially after it starts to dry out a little bit. We're just going to top these guys. Don't press down too much yet. Right? Push down on the top of the ball just a little bit. Right? And then this is going to be the fun part. So when you pick this up, we're going to try to match the sides, right, as we go around. And if you do like 3 sides, then you can go back around, thumb and forefinger or pointer finger, and just go all the way around, right? And you're going to want to do that a couple of times. See how it came right back apart? Right? And then see how the filling is creeping up towards the edge? We're just going to push that back towards the center, right? And then 2 fingers all the way around. And that's it. So nice and sealed all the way around. Good edge to the ravioli, but it's not like a dot of filling and then all this pasta, right? It's mostly filling and a little edge seal. One of the things you can do is you can take this ramekin, right? And you can like try to force that back in, and you could take a cutter with your round one and then, or with your square one, and just cut it, right? If you had a smaller ramekin, what you can actually do is you can actually rotate it around the filling and it'll ball the filling back up. It's a pretty cool little trick. But so with the round ones, you could do the same thing. You don't have to square it off. But for all the square people out there, right? So, you know, you fold it in half, and you could do this and just leave them into little half moons. So mezzalunas, half moons, right? All done, right? And you can then fold them. And then there's 2 ways to do it. There's one way to do it where you make a cup, right? So the cup is like that. See the cup to it?
Yep.
And then the other way to do it. So then the other way to do it is you have to bend it against itself. So we'll make our half moons, which could be squares. And normally these would be squares because you would roll out a big sheet and you would cut all these squares, right? And the other way to do it is you kind of bend it against itself, right? So by here and like this. So it like crimps itself more, right? See my blowout right there? See that little tiny thing? You've got to fix that or else it'll explode in the water. All right, so you can do more than just 6. You just have to be fast enough to not let the pasta dry out and not let the egg whites completely dry out on it. When you're working with homemade pasta, like fresh homemade pasta, what we actually do in the restaurants is you take a spray bottle that's only ever been used for water and you put it on mist, and you actually just mist all your pasta at one time with just water, because fresh homemade pasta has a little bit more liquid to it, so it'll stick to itself better. So we're going to be done there. We need to grind up a little bit more black pepper, and with this we're going to make it just a little bit more coarse, just because I like biting into that pepper a little bit. So then we're going to fry this in the butter. We're going to take our butter over. We're going to take our pepper to the stove. We're going to get our pasta water up to a boil. We've got a skimmer for our pasta and some black pepper in there. So here's our butter. We fried the black pepper in it. stop it before it turns into like perfect brown butter. It's not the dish that you're looking for on that. Salted boiling water. Drop our ravs in. They're probably going to take about 3 minutes. And like these, like we should have covered these with a damp towel. I can already feel how they're getting a little dry. But because they're going directly into water, they should be okay. So now we're going to grate a little bit of the parmigiano reggiano in here. Right, and then we're going to let that cook in with the cheese or with the butter just a little bit. Right, let our raviolis finish cooking. We'll put more cheese on top of it in just a minute. So this dough is super thin, so it probably takes about 4 or 5 minutes. Oh, so look, see my blowout right there? Yep, that's bad. That's bad. Very embarrassing. So
it's okay.
We're gonna let this drain out for just a second. And I'm gonna leave a little bit of the pasta liquid in there, right into our bowl, right into our saute pan. Couple of tosses. Right. Just a little more pasta liquid in there, just to give it a little bit of sauciness. So the pasta water, the starch from the ravioli, and the fat begin to emulsify. So using straight water out of the sink would work, but by retaining a little bit of starch from the cooking liquid, and I'm not even going to get very fancy with plating that because, geez, that looks good. This is the other great use for the microplane. It literally makes like Parmesan snow, right?
Looks delicious.
And then once that's done, I mean, the dish is really, that's it. I mean, I would say that I probably could have browned my butter just a little less. It got a little bit away from me, but that's about it. So there's our cute little tortellinis, right? They held up nice, right? And then the filling's nice and creamy. Cheeses begin to melt in there, you know, and by keeping the cheese a little chunky, you still get that definition.
Amazing, chef. Thank you.
Thank you.